The crimson dust storms of Helios 7 painted the sky in eternal twilight, obscuring the three moons that once guided travelers across its vast wastelands. Senna Blackwood adjusted her atmospheric filters and pulled her hoverbike to a stop, the vehicle's anti-grav units humming softly against the howling wind. Her scanners had picked up something impossible, an energy signature that shouldn't exist on this dead world. Iris, analyze the reading again, she commanded her AI companion, embedded in her neural interface. The holographic display flickered before her eyes, confirming what she detected. It was the same rare element she'd been tracking for the past 3 years, the one that had cost her everything, her career, her reputation, and nearly her life. Energy signature confirmed, Iris responded in her characteristically calm tone. Composition matches Luminarian technology. Caution advised, local atmospheric interference may affect readings. Senna dismounted, her modified exosuit compensating for the planet's harsh gravity. The ruins of what must have once been a magnificent city stretched before her, its twisted spires reaching toward the bloody sky like broken fingers. She'd visited dozens of abandoned Luminarian outposts before, but this one felt different. The air itself seemed to hum with residual energy. "No one's been here for centuries," she muttered, more to herself than to Iris. The Luminarians, an advanced species known for their mastery of bioorganic technology, had vanished from the galaxy nearly 500 years ago. Their disappearance had sparked countless theories and expeditions, but Senna's interest was more personal. Their technology held the key to saving millions from the same degenerative condition that had claimed her brother's life. As she made her way through the ruins, her boots crunching on crystalline debris, she noticed something odd. Unlike other Luminarian sites she'd explored, these structures showed signs of recent activity. Fresh scratch marks marred the iridescent walls, and some of the ancient power conduits still pulsed with a faint blue light. Iris full-spectrum scan, something's not right here. Before her AI could respond, a flash of movement caught her eye. Senna spun around, her hand instinctively reaching for the pulse pistol at her hip. There, in the shadows of a collapsed archway, stood a figure that defied everything she thought she knew. He was Luminarian, impossibly, inexplicably alive. His tall, ethereal form was adorned with the bioorganic implants characteristic of his species, pulsing with an inner light that matched the color of his silver eyes. But unlike the historical records she'd studied, this Luminarian bore obvious signs of adaptation to centuries of isolation. His once elegant biomechanical extensions had been crude repairs, and his luminescent skin was scarred with patterns she didn't recognize. "How long have you been watching me?" Senna asked, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. She'd learned enough of the Luminarian language during her research to attempt communication. The figure stepped forward, his movement fluid despite his damaged state. "Long enough to know you're not with the others," he responded in perfect standard, his voice carrying an otherworldly harmonic. "The ones who came before, the scavengers, the killers." Senna slowly raised her hands, showing she meant no harm. "My name is Senna Blackwood. I'm a researcher, a scientist. I've spent years studying your people's technology." "I know who you are," he said, moving closer. "The disgraced biomechanical engineer who dared to suggest Luminarian technology could be integrated with human biology, the one they called mad." A bitter smile crossed his features. "They called us mad too when we suggested the same thing centuries ago." The revelation stunned her. "You know about my work, Hal." "I am Thuron, last guardian of the Luminarian archives, and I've been monitoring your species' development for a very long time." He gestured to the ruins around them. "This was once the greatest repository of knowledge in the galaxy. Now it's nothing but a tomb, except—" A distant explosion interrupted him, followed by the unmistakable whine of military-grade engines. Senna's heart sank as she recognized the sound. "The mercenary coalition. They must have tracked me here." Thuron's expression hardened. "They've been coming in greater numbers lately. Searching, they cannot be allowed to find what's hidden here." He turned to Senna, his silver eyes intense. "You sought our technology to heal, to help. But there are those who would use it to dominate, to destroy. I've watched you long enough to believe you might be different." Another explosion, closer this time. Senna could hear the shouts of coalition forces echoing through the ruins. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm tired of watching from the shadows while your kind tears apart our legacy. Perhaps," he extended his hand, the bioorganic implants glowing brighter, "perhaps it's time for a guardian to choose a side." Senna looked at his offered hand, then at the approaching forces, and finally at the ruins of a civilization that held the answers she'd sought for so long. She made her choice. As their hands met, his biomechanical implants pulsed, and Senna gasped as information flooded her neural interface. Star maps, technical specifications, and secrets long thought lost cascaded through her mind. "Welcome to the archives, Senna Blackwood," Thuron said, as coalition ships appeared on the horizon. "Now shall we show them why the Luminarians were both revered and feared?" A smile crossed Senna's face as she drew her pulse pistol. "Lead the way, Guardian." Together, they disappeared into the depths of the ruins, leaving behind the approaching forces and entering a labyrinth of ancient mysteries. Neither of them could have known that this moment would spark a chain of events that would reshape the galaxy, or that their unlikely alliance would evolve into something far more profound than either of them could have imagined. The real question wasn't whether they could evade their pursuers, but whether the galaxy was ready for the truth they would uncover together. The last guardian and the disgraced engineer, united by circumstance but bound by a shared vision of what could be. As they ventured deeper into the archives, the crimson storm above grew stronger, as if the planet itself was awakening after centuries of slumber. This was only the beginning. Deep within the ancient archives, Senna's footsteps echoed against crystalline floors that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. Thuron moved silently beside her, his silver eyes casting ghostly reflections on the curved walls. They had been evading coalition forces for 3 days now, delving deeper into the labyrinthine structure that had once housed the greatest collection of knowledge in the known galaxy. "Your neural interface is adapting well to our systems," Thuron observed, watching as Senna's fingers danced through holographic displays only she could see. Most humans would have suffered severe cognitive shock from such a rapid data transfer. "Most humans haven't spent a decade studying Luminarian biotechnology," Senna replied, though she couldn't hide her grimace as another wave of information flooded her mind. "Though I'll admit the headaches are intense." The archives were vast beyond imagination, extending kilometers beneath the planet's surface. Each chamber they passed contained wonders that would have made her previous discoveries seem trivial. Suspended animation chambers, quantum computing cores grown from living crystal, and technologies she had no words to describe. "Why did you really come here, Senna?" Thuron's question cut through her thoughts. "The truth this time, not the noble pursuit of healing that you tell yourself." Senna's hands stilled over the holographic interface. "You know about my brother. I know he died from neural degradation. I know the medical establishment refused to consider experimental treatments. And I know you believed our technology could have saved him." Thuron's voice carried no judgment, only a deep understanding that made her chest ache. "Marcus was brilliant," she whispered. "He deserved better than to watch his own mind slip away piece by piece. But you're right, it's not just about him anymore. The Coalition, the major corporations, even Earth's government, they're all scrambling to control pieces of Luminarian technology they don't understand. They're going to get people killed." A distant explosion interrupted their conversation, causing dust to rain from the ceiling. The Coalition forces were getting closer. "They're using sonic charges to map the structure," Thuron said, his bioorganic implants pulsing with increased intensity. "Crude but effective, we should." He stopped suddenly, head tilted as if listening to something Senna couldn't hear. His expression shifted from concern to fear, the first time she'd seen such raw emotion on his face. "They're approaching the Nexus," he said, his voice tight. "They must have found another entrance." "The Nexus." "The heart of the archives, a quantum database containing the complete history of my people, including," he hesitated, "including the real reason for our disappearance." Another explosion, closer this time. Senna grabbed Thuron's arm, surprised by how warm his crystalline skin felt beneath her touch. "Then we need to move. Now." They raced through the twisting corridors, their path illuminated by the pulsing lights of Thuron's implants. Senna's neural interface was flooding her with mapping data, showing dozens of intersecting paths and chambers. But something else was bleeding through: emotions, memories that weren't her own. "Thuron," she gasped as they ran, "I'm seeing. Things, a great city, a celebration, but then darkness screaming." "The neural link is stronger than I anticipated," he replied grimly. "You're accessing the archive's emotional imprints. My people believed that true knowledge could only be preserved through the full experience of memory, joy, pain, and everything between." They burst into a vast circular chamber dominated by a towering pillar of living crystal. Energy coursed through it like blood through veins, and the air itself seemed to hum with potential. This was the Nexus. But they weren't alone. "Senna Blackwood," a familiar voice called out. "Still chasing fairy tailies, I see." Colonel Radek stepped from the shadows, flanked by heavily armed coalition troops. His cybernetic eye gleamed red in the crystal's light. "Though I must admit, finding a living luminarian, that exceeds even my expectations." Radek, Senna's hand tightened on her pulse pistol. "Still doing the corporation's dirty work." "Their money spends just fine," he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Now, let's be professional about this. Hand over the Luminarian and any data you've acquired, and maybe I won't have you charged with treason." Thuron stepped forward, his tall frame radiating an authority that seemed to make even the coalition troops nervous. "Your kind has been pillaging our ruins for centuries, twisting our innovations into weapons. No more." "Your kind," Radek laughed. "Your kind abandoned the galaxy, left us to clean up your mess. Whatever catastrophe made you run and hide, it gave us the right to claim what you left behind." Senna saw Thuron flinch at those words, and through their neural link, she felt a wave of guilt and grief that nearly brought her to her knees. In that moment, she understood the Luminarians hadn't simply disappeared. They had chosen to leave. "You're wrong," she said, stepping between Thuron and Radek. "They didn't abandon us, they were protecting us, weren't they, Thuron?" The last Guardian's silver eyes met hers, and in them she saw centuries of solitude, of watching and waiting, of bearing a burden too heavy for any being to carry alone. "The archive will show you," he said softly. "All of you, the truth about my people's choice, the price of power without wisdom, the darkness that follows when you reach too far too fast." Before Radek could respond, Thuron raised his hands. The crystal pillar flared with blinding intensity, and Senna's neural interface exploded with information. She heard the coalition troops cry out, their own neural implants overwhelmed by the sudden data surge. As consciousness slipped away, Senna felt Thuron's arms catch her, and his voice whispered in her mind, "Forgive us for what you're about to learn." The last thing she saw was Radek's face, twisted in a mix of pain and revelation, as the truth of the Luminarians' greatest secret began to unfold in all their minds. The archives had awakened, and with them, the whispers of a past that would shake the foundations of everything they believed. Senna awoke to the soft hum of crystal resonance. Her neural interface was quiet for the first time in days, though her mind felt stretched and raw, like an overworked muscle. As her vision cleared, she found herself in a chamber she hadn't seen before, lying on a bed of luminescent moss that seemed to respond to her vital signs. "The healing garden," Thuron's voice came from nearby. "One of the few chambers still functioning as intended." He sat cross-legged on the floor, his bioorganic implants dimmed to a gentle pulse. Around them, coalition soldiers including Radek lay unconscious, similarly cradled by the living moss. "What happened?" Senna tried to sit up, fighting a wave of dizziness. "The Nexus showed you everything." Thuron's silver eyes met hers, filled with ancient sorrow. "The truth about why my people left, why I remained behind." The memories flooded back, not her own, but those stored in the archive. She saw a civilization at its peak, masters of both organic and mechanical realms. She saw their first discovery of what they called the void stream, a force that existed between dimensions, raw potential that could be shaped by thought alone. "Your people found a way to evolve beyond physical form," she whispered. to transcend reality itself. Thuron nodded. We believed we had reached the ultimate enlightenment. Why be bound by flesh when consciousness could expand infinitely? Why remain in this universe when we could explore countless others? But something went wrong. The void stream was never meant to be harnessed. Each time we used it, we created microscopic tears in the fabric of spacetime. Eventually, those tears began to spread, to connect. Dark matter entities started bleeding through, things that defied our understanding of physics and life itself. Senna's blood ran cold as the archived memories showed her glimpses of these entities, shifting, impossible forms that drove observers to madness. The Luminarians didn't just leave, they were running. We had two choices, Thuron said, standing to help her up. Stay and watch reality itself unravel, or seal ourselves away in a pocket dimension, taking the knowledge of the void stream with us. But we needed anchors, guardians who would remain behind, watching over the sealed tears and ensuring our mistake was never repeated. You sacrificed everything, Senna reached out, touching his crystalline cheek. Stayed alone all these centuries. Not entirely alone. I watched your species grow, learn, create. I saw in humans the same passion for discovery that once drove my people. And in you, Senna, he placed his hand over hers. I saw someone who understood the price of reaching too far. A groan from nearby interrupted the moment. Colonel Radek was stirring, his cybernetic eye flickering as it rebooted. The others will wake soon, Thuron said. The archive has shown them the truth as well. The question is, what will they do with it? Radek sat up slowly, his usual arrogance replaced by a haunted look. All this time, we've been harvesting technologies that could tear reality apart. The corporations, they'll never stop, not even knowing the danger. Then we'll have to stop them. Senna helped Radek to his feet, surprising herself as much as him. The Coalition has influence, resources, if you help us. Us, Radek raised an eyebrow, looking between her and Thuron. You're choosing his side. I'm choosing the side of survival. Knowledge must be earned, Colonel, not stolen, not misused. She turned to Thuron. But that doesn't mean we have to face this alone. Before Thuron could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the archive. The chamber's crystal walls flashed urgent patterns of light. No, Thuron whispered, his face paling. The corporate forces must have followed the Coalition here. There. They're using quantum resonators on the outer chambers. What does that mean? Senna demanded, though the horror in his voice told her enough. It means they're accidentally accessing the void stream, the seals. His bioorganic implants flared with emergency power. The seals are failing. The chamber shuddered as reality itself began to warp. Through gaps in the crystal walls, Senna caught glimpses of impossible geometries, of darkness that moved with terrible purpose. We need to reach the archive's core, Thuron said urgently. There's a failsafe, but activating it will destroy all of this, everything I've protected for centuries. Your people's entire legacy, Senna began, but Thuron cut her off. Some legacies are better left buried. He took her hand, his touch sending waves of electromagnetic resonance through her neural interface. Help me end this, the right way this time. Radek checked his weapon, then nodded to his awakening soldiers. We'll hold off the corporate forces, buy you time. He managed a grim smile. Consider it the Coalition's first step toward redemption. As reality continued to fracture around them, Senna and Thuron raced deeper into the archive. Through their neural link, she felt his grief at what must be done, but also something else, hope, sparked by the presence of someone who finally understood the weight of his vigil. Whatever happens, she said as they ran, you're not alone anymore. The crystal walls pulsed in warning as the darkness grew closer, but Thuron's grip on her hand remained steady. Together, they would ensure that some knowledge remained lost, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Out of love for a universe that deserved the chance to find its own path to enlightenment. Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed through the archives. Above them, reality trembled on the edge of chaos. And ahead lay a choice that would determine not just their fate, but the fate of two civilizations bound together by an ancient mistake and a chance at redemption. The deeper levels of the archive twisted reality like a fevered dream. Crystalline corridors branched and merged in impossible ways as the void stream's influence grew stronger. Senna's neural interface struggled to map their surroundings, the quantum fluctuations corrupting every scan. "The failsafe chamber is just ahead," Thuron said, his voice strained. The bioorganic implants along his spine pulsed with emergency power, fighting to maintain his physical form as reality degraded around them. "But activating it, there's something I haven't told you." They ducked through a doorway that seemed to fold in on itself, emerging into a vast spherical chamber. At its center floated a perfect cube of dark crystal, surrounded by streams of energy that defied physics. "The archive's heart," Thuron explained, leading her toward a control interface. "And the anchor point keeping the dimensional tiers sealed. Once activated, the failsafe will collapse every quantum structure within 1,000 kilometers. Everything my people built, everything we discovered. It will be as if we never existed." Senna studied his face, seeing centuries of loneliness etched in his ethereal features. "That's not all it will destroy, is it?" He met her gaze, silver eyes flickering. "The Guardian must remain with the archive until the end." "No," the word escaped her before she could stop it. "There has to be another way. Your people's knowledge, their legacy, was tainted from the beginning." He touched her cheek, his crystalline fingers cool against her skin. "We thought we could master forces beyond our understanding, but true wisdom isn't about holding onto knowledge at any cost. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let go." A massive tremor shook the chamber. Through their neural link, Senna felt reality fraying at the edges, felt the hunger of things that should not exist seeping through the weakening seals. "Senna," Radix' voice crackled through her calm. "Corporate forces are falling back, but something's happening to their troops. They're changing. We can't hold this position much longer." Another tremor, stronger this time. The dark crystal cube pulsed ominously, its surface rippling like liquid shadow. "The void stream is spreading," Thuron said urgently. "If we don't act now, there won't be anything left to save." He began interfacing with the control systems, his implants synchronizing with the ancient technology. Senna watched him work, her mind racing. Through their neural link, she could feel his acceptance of his fate, his gratitude for having found connection one last time before the end. But she also felt something else, a pattern in the quantum data flowing through the archive systems. "Wait," she grabbed his arm. "The failsafe doesn't just destroy the archive. It creates a quantum barrier, doesn't it? To permanently seal the dimensional tiers." "Yes, but then we can modify it, use my neural interface as a bridge." Her fingers flew over the holographic controls. "The archive systems already recognize me as compatible. If we reconfigure the quantum barrier to—" "It would kill you," Thuron interrupted. "A human mind was never meant to process this level of quantum data." "But I wouldn't be just human anymore, would I?" She met his gaze steadily. "Not since you linked me to the archive, not since I started carrying your people's memories." Beyond the chamber walls, reality groaned like a dying thing. They could hear the sounds of battle growing closer, punctuated by screams that didn't sound human anymore. "We don't have time to debate this," Senna continued. "Your people chose isolation to protect the universe. Let me choose this to protect you." Thuron stared at her, centuries of loneliness warring with newfound fear of loss. "You don't understand what you're offering. I understand that some knowledge is worth preserving. Some connections are worth fighting for." She smiled, touching the crystalline patterns that had begun spreading from her neural interface across her skin. "Now, are you going to help me save both our peoples, or do I have to figure this out alone?" A moment passed between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Then Thuron nodded, his implants brightening as he joined her at the controls. Together, they began rewriting the failsafe protocols, their minds merging through the neural link as they raced against the collapse of reality itself. Around them, the archive's heart pulsed with growing power, counting down to a dawn that would change everything. Neither of them noticed the dark crystal cube beginning to resonate with their combined consciousness, its surface reflecting not their current forms, but what they might become. The next few minutes would determine not just the fate of the archive, but the possibility of a future neither of them had dared to imagine. A future where the wisdom of two civilizations might find a new path forward, bridged by two beings who chose to face the darkness together. The universe held its breath. In the heart of the archive, Senna's consciousness expanded beyond the limits of her human form. The quantum data coursed through her neural interface like liquid fire, rewriting her on a molecular level. Beside her, Thuron's bioorganic implants pulsed in harmony with the changes overtaking her body. "The barrier is forming," he announced, his voice echoing strangely through their shared neural link. "But the dimensional tiers are spreading faster than we can seal them." Through eyes that no longer saw quite the same way, Senna watched reality fracture around them. The chamber walls rippled like water, reflections showing glimpses of other worlds, other possibilities. In the distance, she could hear Radek and his remaining troops fighting against things that had no name in any human language. "We need more power," she gasped, fighting to maintain coherence as her transformation continued. "The archive systems are drawing from my consciousness, but it's not enough." "Then take mine as well." Thuron placed his hands over hers on the control interface. "All of it, every memory, every moment of watching and waiting, make it mean something." Their minds merged completely as the dark crystal cube began to resonate with their combined essence. Centuries of solitude met decades of searching, creating something entirely new. Through their shared consciousness, Senna felt Thuron's memories wash over her, the fall of his civilization, the long vigil, the moment he first saw her entering the ruins and dared to hope. In return, she shared everything she was, her grief for her brother, her defiance against those who called her mad, her growing feelings for a being who understood the price of knowledge. Together, they became a bridge between worlds, between ways of thinking that had never been meant to meet. The crystal cube's surface turned mirror-bright, reflecting not their physical forms but the quantum patterns of their merging consciousness. Around them, reality itself began to stabilize, the dimensional tiers slowly sealing as the barrier took shape. "It's working," Thuron whispered in her mind, "but the process is changing us, we're becoming." "Something new," Senna finished. Through their link, she could feel their consciousness expanding, transforming into a form that could exist in the space between dimensions. Not quite human, not quite luminarian, but a fusion of both species' potential. The chamber filled with blinding light as the failsafe reached its critical point. But instead of destruction, it brought transformation. The archive systems, recognizing the unprecedented fusion of human and luminarian consciousness, began to reconfigure themselves. "Senna," Radek's voice crackled through the comm one last time. "Whatever you're doing, the tiers are closing. The things, they're being pulled back, but you need to get out of there." She sent back a single thought, knowing it would be the last time she could communicate in a way he would understand. "Take care of Earth, Colonel, and remember what you learned here." The light grew impossibly bright as the barrier solidified. Senna felt her physical form dissolving, merging with Thuron's into something that existed beyond conventional reality. Their combined consciousness expanded through the quantum barrier, becoming its guardians and its power source. In that final moment of transformation, they shared a single thought. This was not an ending, but a beginning. Years later, stories would spread through the galaxy of strange lights seen in the ruins of Helios 7, of impossible technologies that appeared when needed most, only to fade away again, of two beings glimpsed in quantum space, neither human nor luminarian, who watched over the boundaries between dimensions. Some called them myths. Others, particularly those who had been there at the end, knew better. They were the new guardians, watching over not just one civilization's legacy, but the potential of two species to learn from each other's mistakes and triumphs. In the space between dimensions, Senna and Thuron's consciousness danced through quantum realms, their merged essence a testament to the power of understanding across boundaries. They had become living proof that the greatest wisdom comes not from holding on to knowledge, but from knowing how to share it wisely. The archive was gone, yet its purpose lived on in a form its creators could never have imagined. And in the vast quantum spaces where two beings who had once been human and luminarian now existed, love continued to bridge the gap between what was and what could be. Their story became a whispered legend, a reminder that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from reaching for power, but from reaching for understanding. That in the space between species, between dimensions, between hearts, new universes of possibility wait to be born. Beyond the stars, beyond physical form, beyond the boundaries of conventional existence, two beings who had chosen love over legacy continued their eternal watch. Together, they ensured that the mistakes of the past would guide the wisdom of the future, and that the endless dance of discovery would never again lead to destruction. They had become something beyond either of their original forms, yet they remained themselves, the scientist who dared to dream and the guardian who dared to trust. In their transcendence, they had found not just purpose, but peace. And in the quantum spaces between realities, their consciousness continued to evolve, to grow, to love eternal proof that some boundaries are meant to be crossed, some rules meant to be rewritten, and some souls meant to find each other across the vast expanses of space and time. The end was just the beginning,